is Eatel 4 News from the Eatel Channel 4 studios with your anchor Scott Rogers and co-anchor Jenny Harriman.
Welcome back, folks, to Eatel 4 News. Estate planning sounds pretty intimidating and even a little confusing, but we're narrowing it down and getting down to the basics. And we now go over to Scott, who's joined by a special guest.
Thanks, Jenny. Joining me right now is attorney Linda Melancon. Linda, it's a pleasure to have you on Eatel 4 News.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, in the commercial break, you already taught me a ton of stuff. I didn't know how little I knew until I spoke to you.
Well, great.
Let's start the folks off at home with what is estate planning. Let's talk about what that is first of all.
Well, Scott, basically estate planning is the process of planning and drafting the documents necessary for you to be able to maintain control of your property while you're alive and well, and then planning if you become incapacitated to make sure that you're taken care of, and then leaving your assets, what you have, to whom you want, when you want, and in the manner that you want to.
What about the folks at home who are thinking, well, I don't really have that much, you know, I maybe got a house or a car or a little bit of savings, it's not really worth it?
Well, estate planning, a basic misconception is that estate planning is only for the rich. And it is very important for those people who have a lot of assets to do estate planning in order to save on taxes and things of that nature. But estate planning is also for people who are not so wealthy. There are a lot of things that can be done in order to protect their property, to protect disputes in their family, and also to make sure that if they become incapacitated, that they're saving costs to their family.
You know, Linda, that's an interesting thing. I think one of the big things you hear a lot of is, and it's very sad, is when someone dies and there isn't any clear instruction, the family all starts fighting with each other. Oh, Auntie Ethel said I was supposed to get her ring. Well, I was supposed to get her earrings. So that's probably another good reason to do it, is to stop the family arguing after you died.
Absolutely, Scott. That is, on the other side of my practice, I do a lot of estate administration, and I see a lot of those fights, and I see how those could have been prevented by some planning up front.
Now, what about, I've seen it online, and sometimes people advertise, and sometimes I've seen it in Office Depot, these wills software, you know, where you can buy software to do your will. Would you advocate that?
I would not advocate that. Of course, I'm a lawyer and believe that our services have a lot of value. But in Louisiana in particular, you will go to some of the websites that advertise those things. And in fact, I looked at one recently, and it had on there state-specific documents, and then it said, see below, and it said, these don't apply in Louisiana.
Because we're under Napoleonic law.
We have laws that are much different than the rest of the country, and so they don't write will software specifically for Louisiana. So it's very important to seek the advice of an attorney.
Now, I actually went to an attorney to sort out my, after I died, because I wanted to make sure, and this is so funny because Linda explained this, I wanted to make sure they didn't switch me off, you know, in the hospital. I want to make sure it was in my will. You've got to keep me alive as long as you can. And I got all confused. There's a specific term for this, isn't there, where you can dictate what happens if you're in an accident, etc.
Absolutely, there is. That is called a living will, and a lot of times people get that confused with either a living trust or with a will.
Yeah, I got confused.
but a living will just basically gives instructions to your healthcare providers that if they've determined that you're not, that you're being kept alive artificially, that you don't want to be kept alive in that manner.
Is all this expenses, if we were to go to the attorney, I don't expect you to give prices on the air, but is it affordable for the average Joe to come and see you and say, look, can you write me up my will, can you sort out my estate and put it in some sort of order for me?
It is affordable, but in comparison to what the costs are to your estate and to your family, if you don't do this, it makes it even more affordable.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Perhaps you could come back and give us some more explanations of other legal things that perhaps I'm a little bit confused on, because I certainly found this very educational today.
Well, that would be great.
Thank you. Linda Melancon, I do appreciate it very much. What do you think, Jenny? Found that interesting?
Very interesting, and I learned a lot too. Thank you very much to Linda Melancon for being here.